Have you ever felt like the world is just too much? Like you're standing in the middle of a hurricane of notifications, shifting trends, and a future that seems to change every time you blink? Most of us live with a quiet, underlying anxiety that life is fundamentally chaotic. We feel like we're constantly reacting to a series of random accidents. We're bracing for the next market crash, the next tech disruption, the next personal crisis. We've become exhausted from trying to manage a world that feels like it has no floor. But what if I told you that beneath the noise, nothing is actually moving as randomly as you think? What if there is a structure, a silent, mathematical heartbeat that governs everything from the way a leaf falls to the way your own life unfolds? Today, we're looking at a man who saw the world not as a mess, but as a masterpiece of logic. He was a loner, a reclusive genius, and perhaps the greatest mind to ever walk the earth. He didn't find the truth in a crowded room or a busy office. He found it in the silence of an empty garden, while the world around him was literally falling apart. His name was Isaac Newton. We're moving beyond the gravity and the calculus to find something much deeper, the inner shift from a life of reaction to a life of alignment. Before we get to the laws of motion, you need to understand who this man actually was. Imagine a young student in the mid-1600s, quiet and intensely private. When a great plague swept through London, closing the universities and sending everyone into a panic, Newton didn't spend his time in fear. He retreated to his family farm in Woolsthorpe. In that forced isolation, a period he called his Annus Mirabilis, or Year of Wonders, he laid the foundation for modern science. While the rest of the world was in chaos, Newton was in the deep work. He was an explorer of the invisible. He wasn't just a physicist. He was a man obsessed with the source code of the universe. He spent more time studying ancient theology and alchemy than he did gravity. He believed that if he could just look closely enough at the patterns of nature, he would see the mind of the Creator. He took the name of a scientist, but he lived with the soul of a mystic. He found that the universe doesn't reveal its secrets to the busy, it reveals them to the attentive. And that is the first shift he offers us. Your power isn't in your speed, it's in your stillness. We've all heard the story of the apple falling on his head. It's become a bit of a cliché, a lucky accident that changed history. But Newton himself had a different explanation. When people asked him how he discovered the laws of the universe, he didn't talk about luck. He said, "I keep the subject constantly before me and wait until the first dawnings open little by little into the full light." Think about the discipline in that. In a world where we can't go 10 minutes without checking a screen, Newton would hold a single mathematical problem in his mind for months. He wouldn't let go until the truth surrendered. The apple didn't give him the idea of gravity. The apple was just the final piece of a puzzle he had been staring at with absolute, unwavering attention. In our modern culture, we think intelligence is about how fast you can process information. Newton teaches us that real intelligence is about how long you can hold information without flinching. The crack in our modern lives is that our attention is fragmented. We are broad but thin. Newton was a needle, narrow, sharp, and capable of piercing the fabric of reality. He shows us that if you want to find the unmoving truth in your life, you have to stop looking for new things and start looking deeper at the things already in front of you. Newton's greatest gift to us was the clockwork universe. He showed us that the world is not a series of miracles or accidents, it is a system of laws. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. This isn't just physics, it's a psychological mirror. If you feel like the world is pushing against you, Newton would ask, "Where are you pushing?" If you feel exhausted, perhaps it's because you're trying to move against the grain of the universal laws. You're trying to force a result rather than understanding the conditions required for that result to appear. Newton saw that when you align yourself with the truth, you don't need to exert as much effort. A planet doesn't try to orbit the sun. It simply follows the curve of space. When we stop fighting reality, when we stop wishing for things to be different and start understanding why they are the way they are, we find a stability that no storm can shake. We move from being victims of circumstance to being students of law. But don't mistake this for a life of passive submission. Newton's laws aren't a set of rules imposed upon you by a cold, distant universe. They are the very fabric of what you are. You see, the inner shift here isn't about forced acceptance. It's about deep recognition. When we look at the stars, we often feel small, separate, and insignificant. But Newton saw that the same force holding the moon in its orbit is the same force that moves the blood through your veins. There is no out there and in here. There is only one unbroken movement. When you look at your life through this lens, you realize that you aren't just an observer of the universe. You are the universe in motion. You are a unique, once-in-an-eternity expression of a vast, intelligent field. Every atom in your body was forged in the heart of a dying star. It took billions of years, countless coincidences, and an infinite amount of what we might call love or care for you to be standing here, breathing at this very moment. You don't need to obey the laws of nature any more than a wave needs to obey the ocean. You are the ocean. When you truly see this connection, the ideas of fighting reality or submitting to it start to fade away. Why would you fight what you are? Why would you fear the laws that sustain your very existence? Real clarity is understanding that you are already whole. You are a sacred part of a sacred whole, and there has never been a moment of separation. When you stop seeing yourself as a separate entity trying to win against the world, and start seeing yourself as a part of the world's natural harmony, life stops being a struggle. It becomes a dance. You move gently not because you are afraid of the reaction, but because you have finally understood the beauty of the rhythm. You live in harmony not because you have to, but because you have finally realized that there is no other place to be. You are the architect, the order, and the chaos, all at once. Now, let's bring this into your life right now. We live in an age of artificial mind. We are surrounded by algorithms that are designed to keep us in a state of constant reaction. The world wants you to be a force that is always moving, always consuming, always doing. And because we've lost the sense of an unmoving truth, we feel incredibly fragile. If the algorithm changes, our business fails. If the trend shifts, our identity collapses. We are like leaves in a windstorm, terrified because we've forgotten we are part of a tree with deep, ancient roots. The Newtonian shift for the modern person is to realize that chaos is an illusion born of shallow observation. Think about your own life. When you look back at your failures or your accidents, can you see the laws at work now? Can you see how every reaction was actually a response to an action you took or a belief you held? In this hyper-connected era, our greatest challenge is to protect our Woolsthorpe, our private garden of contemplation. If you don't have a space where the noise stops, you will never see the patterns. You will spend your entire life being moved by external forces, never realizing that the power to move the world is already inside your own ability to be still. Newton didn't change the world by being busy. He changed it by being clear. There's a common misunderstanding we often fall into when we hear about Newton's isolation at Woolsthorpe. We imagine that clarity is something that only happens somewhere else, in a quiet garden, far away from the pressures of our actual lives. We think we have to escape the noise, withdraw from society, or wait for the perfect, silent moment before the truth can finally show itself. But Newton's life teaches us something far more radical. Truth does not wait for ideal conditions. If you look closely at his laws of motion, you'll realize they weren't discovered in a vacuum. They were discovered by observing the world as it is, in all its complexity. Newton didn't find order by ignoring the chaos. He found the order within the chaos. He saw that the same gravity that pulls an apple in a quiet orchard is the very same force holding the planets together in the vast, violent vacuum of space. This is the shift we need right now. The modern world feels overwhelming not because the truth is missing, but because our attention has become scattered. We've been conditioned to believe that if our lives are loud or fractured, we are somehow blocked from seeing clearly. But silence isn't a place you reach. Silence is what happens when your perception becomes whole. You don't need a slower world or a protected space to find your center. Every frustration you feel in traffic, every moment of conflict in your relationships, every sense of emptiness in your career, these are not obstacles to the truth. They are the clues. They are invitations to look more closely at the laws of action and reaction playing out in real time. When you stop resisting the noise of your life and start observing it without judgment, the chaos begins to reveal its hidden value. Much of what we call confusion today is simply the collapse of our outdated ideas about how life should be. And as Newton saw through the prism, it is only when the light is refracted, when it is broken, that we can finally see the full spectrum of its beauty. You don't need to retreat from the world to understand it. You just need to stop fighting what it's trying to reveal to you right now. The truth isn't hiding. It's showing itself continuously in the rhythm of your own breath and the patterns of your own choices. It's not about finding a quiet life. It's about finding the quiet inside the life you already have. So, as you step back into the noise today, take a lesson from the man who saw the invisible. Stop trying to manage the chaos. You can't. Instead, start looking for the order. Notice the reactions to your actions. Notice the patterns in your thoughts. And most importantly, notice the silence that exists beneath the ticking of the clock. You are not a victim of a random universe. You are a conscious participant in a world of profound, beautiful, and unchanging laws. When you find the unmoving place inside yourself, that center of attention that doesn't waver when the world shakes, you become, like Newton, an architect of order. The light is getting in through the cracks of this chaotic age. It's telling us that it's time to stop running and start seeing. This has been What We Are, a space for those who seek to see clearly, to think deeply, and to live with awareness. If this exploration of Isaac Newton helped you find a little more ground beneath your feet, share it with someone who is currently navigating the noise. Subscribe to join us as we continue to reveal timeless truths through the voices of those who truly saw. Thank you for your attention. It is the force that reveals the world. And until next time, stay awake to the order beneath the chaos.